da-da-da-da. I'm kind of at a point in my life where it's like, I'm doing okay to be alive. Like, I'm doing really fucking good to be alive, and I've found something that works, and you don't even know anything about it. And if you would dig a little bit deeper, then maybe you wouldn't be so judgy about it.
Some people think they know me, think they can predict me, think they gotta diss me when I'm not around. And when I come knocking in the door, they get weak in the knees and crumble like a castle to the ground. Cause they know I ain't taking no shit. I got a woman who left me white with a heart of cold stone. When they see the black in my eyes, they see a man so deep in the red that it chills them to the bone. But don't call me an outlaw. I'm a motherfucking gunslinger. You wanna run your mouth all day long. Better keep your eye on my motherfucking trigger finger. Do you feel me cry? Do you feel me?
Okay, so Jared and I hunt a lot. Like, I fish all the time. We hunt in season. It's a big part of our lifestyle. 70%, I would say 70% of my kids' meat came off of deer, off of our land. Like, we've raised chickens. I've had gardens. We've been completely self-sustainable. About 60 to 70%. And doing that with 6 people was a huge accomplishment for me. I was like, this is really freaking cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you're walking around the forest, you look for scat. You look for deer rubbings and different things like that. And this is where you go to find water. So the stoned ape comes across scat because he's looking for food. He sees a mushroom, he's hungry, he eats it, and then they're blasted into some psychedelic experience. And yes, it's a jump in evolution. But he says it didn't happen 10 times or 5 times. It happened millions and millions and millions of times. I've been able to tie in like evolutional type theories and religious type theories that have pounded into me and different things like that in the last 6 to 8 months, because I started to view life as not linear, as parallel, and it was just really eye-opening for me, and I don't know if I can talk about it all. So you were asking how we landed from the middle. I grew up in Fort Worth mostly, just until so I had my first daughter when I was 17. I just turned 17. I was living in Wichita Falls, married at 16, and when my second daughter was born, 97, I remember 99 and the big Y2K scare. I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I had gone to school and I had done all the shits and was making like $15 an hour at 19 years old, and I was pretty stoked about it. And I'm in pharmacies mixing up drugs, and this was really cool for me. But then I got into mail order and I started seeing what the industry was about, and then my brother got sick. So I'm living in Wisconsin. I moved up to Wisconsin in 99. My brother's in the Army.
Brother?
No, I would move up to Wisconsin with my ex-husband's family. We all move up there because Texas is hot and Wisconsin is very, very cold. That lasted about one season. I was like, I can't hack this. It's really gloomy and cold, and you're shut indoors all the time, and I need to be outside in the forest, and there's not enough time to do it. So, and then, then there was 4 months of the year that was livable outdoors. Otherwise, you're in a hut ice fishing. It was not my jam.
No.
We moved to the country in 2007. I was working at Hooters. Let's start here. I was working at Hooters. You remember, 03 I left. I was pregnant with Danica, and we were living in Keller, and we were looking for a sign. We were dealing with CPS in Tennessee a lot because Jared's son's mom was really strung out. And we had the two girls. I had my first 2 from my marriage. CPS is calling us all the time from Tennessee. I have Danica in January of '04. And then about 18 months later, CPS finally cuts through all the red tape and sends the boy to live with us. He's 8 at this point. Let me say that the formative years are extremely important in children. Birth to 4 years of age imprints their life.
I've learned a lot about that in the past 2 years.
Gosh, it's insane. I've watched it for 24 years. And so Jared and I are looking for a sign. We've got all these kids. One of them, we're running around to like Betty Ford centers because he's just, you know, a mess, been through a really shitty life up to 8 years old. And we've got these 3 little girls, and you know, one of them was a real tomboy, and my middle daughter was kind of quirky, and so they were having trouble fitting into the box and at school. And I said, what do we do? And so we were looking for a sign, and my dad just calls and says, you know, my granddad had bought these 75 acres back in '65, and it's always been kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? A reprieve for our family to get away to, you know, when life got too tough for him.
Sure.
And we've all used it a lot.
That's awesome.
So we moved down there in '07.
So he just calls and says, you guys want to come move down
you
here?
should come move down here. You know, this is your inheritance, you know, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And Jared and I, we had just sold this house in Keller. We turned this house for like a $30,000 profit.
I remember that
in
house.
7 years. Yeah.
That's
Oh, we
awesome.
had some fun parties in the
I
house.
remember that's the reason why I went there.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
they're out there somewhere. Yeah, that was a great investment. And we're looking through like a newspaper one day, and I was like, I just really need a solid sign saying that this is the right thing to do. And it was, you know, come pick this mobile home up for free. And I was like, well, you can remodel it. I can help you. You know, we've got the land. Let's just do this because it's a cheap way to raise these kids. And, you know, the big argument came up, no, I want to build a house because I'm a home builder, da-da-da-da. And I was like, we're raising 4 children. Do you realize what they're going to do to a house in the next 10 years? They like animals. They like to fight. You know, these are kids.
yeah.
Let's do this. So now that all the kids are gone, we're saving all of our doll hairs are going towards our new house. That's how we ended up in the country, and it was a great move. 2 hours south of here. For the kids didn't get put in a box. They went to a little tiny country school, and it has its ups and downs in itself.
Sure.
Because you're trying to get back into the rat race and make a way for yourself at 20 when mostly all that you know is, you know, 150 people that you've interacted with from 4 to 18 years old, you know. So that has created a set of problems for each of them, but they're making their way and they're doing a good job.
Yeah. I can see that.
I think my middle daughter is about to join the military.
How do you feel about that?
I support her in any decision she makes.
That's awesome.
It's her life.
Good for you.
I
That's
can't
awesome.
run it. I can barely run mine. I do good to keep you alive to 18, so no.
Yeah,
not
once you
really.
get there, it's all up to you.
They're really awesome kids and people, and I mean that's a testament in spite of me, I think, because I just feel like I was so wayward, you know, as a young mom most of the time, just trying to figure shit out, and
Right.
when you got little people depending on you, it was good for me. It kept me alive, straight up. So
I heard this thing recently, and I'm trying to practice it. It's not very easy.
mm-hmm.
It said women are meant to be loved, not understood. And I've been working on that because I've been trying to understand women for far too long, and it's not working. So I'm trying just to love them.
You gotta pick your part. I mean, you know what kind of energies you like to be around, and that's what it's about to me. And there was a draw, and it's over 20 years. It's been, you know, we're kids, we're young in love, we raised a family, and it's like I genuinely like being around him, spending most of my time around him. And his hang-ups are not that big a fucking deal. Like, you know, I can deal with it. And when you find a person like that, you kind of hang on. So I started feeling really mortal over the last, say, 5 years. And so legacy over the past 3 has been a really huge deal to me and been really big over the last, you know, month. Like, how big does it need to be for me? Like, this is my circle, this is my tribe, this is who I care about, and all the other minutia doesn't fucking matter. It can't. Over the last year, 2, I'm studying this little piece of dirt that we've got out here, and I'm like, how can I know I fed 4 people off of this for 10 years, 6 people off of this for 10 years. How can I make it, you know, last longer? What do I do? You know, how can this be my side hustle? So, industrial hemp has been legalized in Texas over the last 3 or 4 months. I can't give you dates because I'm just taking in so much information right now, but I've been following this. So,
Okay.
One of our representatives finally got, you know, industrial hemp through. I can grow this stuff. I have, you know, a little bit of acreage, and in Kentucky, they're paying. Let's see, corn is $300 to $500. There's a comparison. Corn is going for $300 to $500 an acre. Hemp is $3,000 to $5,000. Plus, like, they're doing studies right now to figure out which seeds are going to grow best in different zones in Texas. This is all going through, and all this stuff is going through the ADA, and they're going to say, this is what you can do, here's your seeds, give me X amount of dollars, and we'll give you some insurance if it doesn't work out. Here's your little bone.
When did you realize it was a rat race? Like, when did you have that revelation?
My dad always told me that, and he would always say, we don't work in the rat race, girl, I'm telling you. And you
What
get
did he
out
do?
early.
What was his hustle?
Dad's a teacher now. He's a scientist. I remember probably his late 30s, early 40s. He was like studying all these different religions and trying to make sense out of stuff and going to school, and he had kids early too. You know, him and my mom were they were young, and he was going to be a doctor. And his side hustle was this Italian guy in Dallas was demolishing buildings, and so Dad had a crew, and they were working their asses off and doing what they needed to do to, you know, snort and blow, drinking, doing whatever to tear a fucking building down in Dallas and haul it off its side. And so, let's see, he was in medical school, and he said, this isn't working, I've got kids. So he went to work. That didn't work. And we moved, Mom and Dad split when I was 10. She immediately took us to the lake, to the country. And Dad ran around the lower half of the United States like a crazy fool, just living hard. And he would bring it back in about every few years and go learn some more stuff. And so I think the struggle was really, really real for him. Like, and he finally just slowed down at about 50 and started taking me out to the country with him. And he was like, I'm telling you, this is what works. And so I was 25-ish.
Isn't it fucked up we can learn in 15 seconds what it took him 30 years to learn? That's the lesson from Paul. 30 years can be shrunk into 15 seconds now.
Mm-hmm. Took me
all the life he lived, everything he learned over that 30 years of,
He would have books all around him, just piled up everywhere.
and his
And-
advice is get the fuck out of the rat race. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. It's a trap.
man.
It's a trap. Good for you and Jared.
Dad's always like, it's gonna be a revolution. So that he said, when people are tired of doing it, it's gonna be a revolution and it's gonna be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of bloodshed because there's really not that many people pulling all the strings.
Yeah.
Dad came over the other day and he was kind of, it's summer, it's hot, everybody's fucking aggravated, and sweaty, and just, annoyed in general. And he's, people are bitching everywhere. Me too. And I had done my MDMA experiment about 48 hours prior, and I am just
Alright.
riding the wave,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I was zenned out.
Right on.
And
right
I'm like,
on.
I'm just looking at him and thinking, you cannot disturb me right now.
Yeah.
And I just smiled, and he's like, and after about 5 minutes, he goes, I'm talking to the wrong fucking person, aren't I? I was like, we don't have a problem. Like, this does not involve me. And namaste, man, motherfucker. He's like, all right, well. I guess I can't talk about John a whole lot yet because it's all just really so, like, his story is so tragic to me. It's just super, super sad. And so I haven't been able to, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just telling stories about him to my little nephew. I don't, and writing my thoughts down in a book about it. I don't know how to articulate what I feel from losing someone that close to me that sadly and quickly, when all it takes is one phone call from one person. Not even him. He was surrounded by people that loved him, cared about him. So I don't really, I guess I can't talk about it enough yet. Like I said, I'm just getting to the point to where it does not make me cry. It's so freaking sad to me.
Yeah.
He was we loved each other a whole bunch and accepted each other just the way we were. Like, it was the purest relationship I've ever had in my life. And to lose that has been a heavy hitter for me.
Yeah.
And I've been telling myself that this could happen again, and you should, Sarah, try to get through this loss with grace and be an example, because you're raising women too, and your story is going to project onto them, for lack of a better word. Does that come out right?
Yeah, but that's a tough position to put yourself in. I mean, you have a right to feel whatever you feel,
For sure.
Everybody grieves differently.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read any grieving books yet, like Stages of or anything. I know what I've heard and what people have told me and things like that, but I haven't got any books or read any books on it or anything like that. I kind of have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, you made it this
So,
far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So how old is your nephew?
he will be 6 in November.
And does he live somewhere close to you?
He's lived in Stephenville until the last month they moved to Abilene.
Oh no.
So I was around him for perfect little combination of everybody that I like. I always, whenever John would have a girlfriend, like we always became friends. Like he picked good people that I liked to be around,
Right.
remain in contact with. But when he would be like, "This person is being mean to me, and you're my sister," you know, I would get his back. You know,
Yeah.
take a step back or whatever. You know, but I've always stayed in contact with people that he loved in his life. So that's been a huge help to me over the last year since I lost him. But when I started trying to look at life as multi-dimensional, like I'm telling myself, you know, this is not the end game. This is kind of just the beginning. We just know a little bit of information.
We were talking about how you ended up where you were, and then you said you moved up to Wisconsin with your ex-husband.
So we're living up there, 2 kids, got a little apartment, working in the pharmaceutical industry. My brother gets really, really sick. He goes AWOL from the military, from the Army, and he ends up with me. I was like, I get a letter one day about 2 months after he moves in with me, and I opened it because it was, you know, from the government and had his name on it, and I wanted to know what was up. And it told us that he was AWOL, and I was like, what's going on with this? Well, within 3 months, he landed in the mental institution. So this is a huge part of my life story because my brother and I were really, really tight. We were like 18 months apart. We grew up together. It was just, I was raised in a cult for like 5 years. So there's this whole, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So you guys are 18 months apart.
and we were really, really close. Let me calm myself down a little bit. When he started getting sick and I started seeing, I'm working in a pharmaceutical industry and they're pumping all this stuff into it. When we were talking about labels and stuff, you know, they're saying, okay, well, he's schizophrenic, he's this, he's that, he's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's just battling to stay alive most of his life. And I was a young mom, and I always, you know, I cared for my brother. You know, my mom was a single mom. And so it was just a really tight bond. And so part of, you know, my older 2 girls, and even Danica, part of their life was visiting uncle, you know, at the hospital every 18 months for, you know, 3 or 4 weeks out of the year. And it was just normal to them. And so when he had his son, we moved to I need to stay on topic.
It's all good.
There's
Wherever
so
you wanna
much.
go.
So he had a little boy before he passed away, and this kid is awesome. And I know, like I've been around for little people coming up, and he latched on to me when he lost his dad, and so it's been really important to me to he would come around and just talk about his dad constantly, and I could barely speak without crying. And so that motivated me to quit drinking because alcohol was depressant and da 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 da. And so I wanted to be able to talk to him and help him articulate what he was feeling about, you know, situations that I know he's going to come up with in life because, hey, I've been there and this is what worked for me, and we kind of have the same blood, and, you know, here's my journals, here's my research, here's my studies. Like, you know, if you have a problem, you can come to Auntie and you can come over here and say but all you want to, but don't say it when you go home. Get all the butts out when you're out fishing with me. He would fish constantly when he's with me. He didn't care if it's Texas, August, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of the day. Heat, hot, sun beating down, you don't want to fish. So we fish.
That's your thing, huh?
Not really, but if it's his thing, I'll do it with him.
Oh, okay.
He's just a little guy, you know.
Okay.
He can't go down and like go on a dock by himself, you know, yet.
Yeah.
Plus, he doesn't want to. He like wants to be around people a lot and talk to you and ask a lot of questions. So many kids ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Patty came over one day and I got 4 kids running around me, and she's got 1 baby. One of the kids was like, "Mom, how do you blah 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 blah? Why is this da da da?" In like the span of 30 minutes, I popped off like 10 answers to questions, little kids, and they're little kid questions. She's like, "You made that sound really easy. How, well, like, that's, I'm taking note. Like, that's good. Do that, yeah." Getting back onto my little brother sidetrack a minute ago, I lost him just over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Textbook bipolar 1 or 2, whatever it was. I just read about that so much over the last year. I had to put it away. I was so obsessed, and all of the symptoms were there, you know, and the unacceptance of, you know, from part of his family and the other part of his family saying, just be okay. It's okay to just be okay and do what you got to do. And he couldn't find a way, so he took himself out about a year ago, and that was, Danica actually called me and told me she was there. It was super, super sad.
That's right.
And I would say that over the past month, I've finally been able to talk about it without breaking down and bawling, because I've been handed so many different things to work through it, and it's been amazing.
That's awesome.
I didn't think I'd ever get over it.
Yeah.
And I know people say it takes time, and there's all the cliches, but this is the 3rd suicide in my family in 8 years. And so it kind of got heavy. I woke up one morning about 2 weeks in and was surprised. I woke up and did that for almost on and off for the next 8 months. So up until, you know, a couple months ago, I was just like, 2 weeks ago, I had this major breakthrough, and I was just like, you really should not be waking up in the morning. Yeah, you're making tiny steps to stop drinking here because this, that, or the other, but you probably should not wake up in the morning. And look at what that's going to do to every single person that you care about and have tried to help be okay so far, or whatever. So,
What do you think what do you think sparked the breakthrough?
So okay, so when we had John's memorial last August, one of his high school buddies that I've kind of known and is Jamie. Hey, Jamers. Showed up at the memorial, and I'm just kind of, I can't even speak. You know, there's 100 people around me, and I literally cannot speak. And he's like, I've got this big bag of mushrooms, and I was like, "Do you do mushrooms?"
And this is a friend of yours or a friend of yours?
This was a friend of my brother's, and I've known him, you know, on and off, and had interactions with him throughout my life. I always thought he was a nice guy, you know, and he remembers me coming up better than I remember him. But
Because your brother's older?
my brother was 2 years younger. Jamie's a little bit younger. He's probably your age,
Okay.
37, 38.
Okay.
I said, I don't know if I should do that because I'm scared of psychedelics.
Sure.
He's like, well, I just want you to just do a microdose. And I was like, I don't know anything about this. He said, just trust me. He said, it finds you when you need it. And that's stuck in my head. I was like, okay. He's like, I've just discovered this over the last 6 months. So he's been on this path for 2 years. I'm a year and a half in.
Right on. Okay.
And so I like kind of walked around the rest of the evening with a mushroom hanging out of my mouth, basically. Trying to decide if I'm going to keep chewing the stem or if I'm going to swallow it.
Okay.
I swallowed it. Washed it down. It was disgusting. About 30 minutes later, we go to our house. We got this great little sitting spot. Big tree canopy around us, you know, halo lights, campfire. Perfect. So peaceful. And a bunch of us are sitting around just talking and reflecting and crying and singing. We're playing guitars, and I started yawning a bunch, and then I started smiling. And I was like, well, this is not what I remember of any psychedelic I've ever done. Like, they were all kind of dark or scary. And I was like, I feel kind of happy, Jamers. And he was like, yeah. He's like, that's microdosing. He says it's just reconnecting neural pathways. That brain damage literally leaves a scar on your brain. Trauma literally leaves a scar on your brain, and there's ways to heal them.
Yeah.
And it has been severely prohibited for, 30, 40 years now? 50 years?
Yeah.
And it's so sad and sick because,
1967.
yeah, there's people running around getting labels, putting in boxes, going on meds that are being, why are drugs being mass produced? Why are drugs being mass produced?
What is it you think your brother struggled with the most? I know you said it was about bipolar, but like, what was his, what it, like, for me, it's always felt like I was carrying something. So what was your brother carrying that, like, what was his burden?
I have a lot of his prayers in a box. So I'm not really sure, because I can't read them yet. We'll have to do this again in probably 6 months, and I'll probably have a lot more answers to some questions, but it's been a year, you know. I've just been sad for a year.
Yeah.
And I'll be working through that, you know, for the next year. Well, finding a new normal,
Right.
without someone who I was really tight with, who I sought a lot of advice from and respected his advice.
Mm-hmm.
However, since we didn't see eye to eye, what didn't work for him doesn't work for me, is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
He was, God, like, working in masonry right before he died, and what back-breaking work that is, like moving rocks around. Like, he did okay to be alive pretty much every day,
Yeah.
I think. And I don't know what went on in his mind half the time, because half the time he couldn't even handle it. So I was just a I was his sister, and I had a lot of survivor's guilt. In the beginning, like, was when I saw a sunrise, it was a sad fucking day. Like, it was not good. So that was time took care of that. Okay, so I was talking about with John. So I've been thinking back over the last 20 years that I spent with him, and how do I get better and learn something so that his life was not in vain. Like,
Right on.
I have to do something to make it okay. So I've been frantically just reading, studying, searching, like, what do I do? And Jamie came to me with this bag and said, try it. You'll like it. And so he sent me some links, and I started listening, and I was grieving, and I was like, shit that I wasn't doing up to that point wasn't working either, for me. So I knew that I had to make a change, or I was literally going to lose my life too. When I saw, like, people that I cared so much about, like, were having to depend on things that weren't fucking working.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally people dropping flies around me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. People who know the value of life and the sanctity of life, and who believe in heaven and hell and God, and know that your body is a temple. And a carnal sin is suicide. And the thing that really made me come to terms with it was a walk in the pasture with John, and I was like, look, this is a reality for you. You know, I think he was on strike 2 at this point. I said, this could happen, and how do I rectify this happening to something? He was very religious. I said, how am I going to be able to get closure if something like this happens to you? He said, it's not me. He said, it's not me. He's like, I take all this medicine, you know, to make me not go crazy. Like, he would lose touch with reality. It was really, really sad. It sucked. And he said, I'm just kind of their guinea pig, and God knows me, and he knows my heart. And he knows that that's not me. It's something else making me do what I've done. And we were using that conversation in reference to actually my grandmother. It started, you know, with her. And, you know, everybody's saying these things around me, you know, how do I make this okay in my head? He said, it's not the real person. There's a drugged up version of it. Doesn't work. And he wasn't he wasn't handed, he was getting into kratom, like he was put on probation, so he had to stop smoking herb, which really isn't good for folks who have such a bipolar personality as him. But mushrooms would have saved that boy's life in small doses. I remember a couple times we were partying when we were kids. We were like in our early 20s when we did ecstasy one time, MDMA, which I did a medicinal dose of in the last 3 weeks. I haven't done it since I was like 22, 23. I read a study from Jordan Peterson, comes out of Johns Hopkins, and he's talking about it. And, you know, they're talking about doses of and how many and controlled settings, so on and so forth. It's like, I have enough experience with this. I can do it. So I did, and I got by myself, and I just started purging. I've got journals, like 3 different journals I'm writing in around me, and I've never used anything to work on me. It's always been an escape because I wasn't okay with me. And plant medicines are so old. I keep backing away from my plant medicines are so old and have been around for so long. It's tried and tested over time, and folks are getting back around to it. I've noticed that a lot of folks are in their late 30s and early 40s. People who are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum, liberals, Republicans, Gen X is really turned on right now. They're using Silicon Valley. They're making computer programs with it. It's everywhere, and yet it's nowhere because nobody can talk about it. Jared got me this really cool, I wish I brought it in, journal. It's like a brown leather journal, and it's got a great paper in it, and it folds, and it just has like a leather lash around it. And it feels great, and it looks really freaking cool.
That's
smart,
awesome.
and it's just really sharp. So
That's awesome.
that's where all of my like deepest thoughts go. And I have a couple of other journals that I write letters in, and I do it to, it's proven fact that, look, writing shit down that messes with you helps you to let go of it. And if you don't want to be hung up with something anymore, write it down. So now I'm like writing stuff down, getting over it, putting it behind me because I don't need fog. And so, like, I was like, I'm gonna burn it, and I'm gonna mix it with my brother's ashes, and I'm gonna get a portrait tattoo, or I'm gonna scatter it all to the wind. And they're like, don't burn your journals, like my kids and my friends. And I'm like, why? So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll probably keep them around, and I don't know what I'll do.
I wouldn't burn them. I wouldn't burn them.
I took myself an ass whooping for a journal I was keeping when I was like 13, 14, 15, a few times. I quit writing stuff down for a long time. Because I've been on a legalization kick since I was like 14. That was, what, 1990? 91? Like, it's been taboo for a while. And, you know, I write about stuff like that. Like, this is great. Like, you know, why doesn't everybody smoke pot? Sometimes.
Get home from a long day, put on the radio, looking for some country soul, but I don't find it, no. It's a dirt road free for all. Some old boys saying they're outlaws. They dress the part and they talk the talk. You know they've been taught to walk the walk. These boys think they're tough. They've been robbing banks, 'cause they name drop Johnny Cash. And they name drop poor old Hank. Hey, pretty boy in the baseball hat, you couldn't hit country with a baseball bat. Country ain't just about where you're at, it's about being true to what's inside of you. Say you're an outlaw with the perfect moves that you got from your record label's image group. Sing another man